Significant accomplishments. What is the thread that runs through your research?
I think the thread that runs through it is the continual search for things that young students can do that people didn't think they could do, and then looking for ways to universalize that, to make whatever enabled this kid to do the remarkable thing something that all of them can do. So it's partly the effort to democratize knowledge and talents, but also the effort to extend our conception of human capabilities beyond what it customarily is.
You state that it has always struck you that the best practices in education are not very good. Why and how might we do things better?
Well, when I say the best practices aren't very good, first of all, I need to qualify that.
Sure.
That is a little extreme even for me. I think best practices in classroom management and in general, how to relate to kids in the classroom. I continue to be impressed at how good teachers are at this. And any teacher who has survived very long has probably mastered that art to such an extent that I think it's really presumptuous of researchers to think they have something to tell teachers on this count. The information flow should be the other way in that case. But where best practice really does fail often is on how to get difficult concepts and skills across. And it's the state of the art that's the problem. You go to your doctor and should not be surprised to hear that whatever your ailment is, and well, let's hope it's not a very serious one, has no known cure. And that doesn't mean it will forever be incurable. It often, but they hope to find one. And the other is that you'll probably get over it anyway. But in education, it is, I never hear it admitted that we don't know how to do something. And yet, the question, how do you introduce kids to rational numbers? The teaching of rational numbers is just a colossal failure. Very few people who don't, unless they go on into more advanced mathematics, very few people emerge from school with a useful knowledge, a mastery of rational numbers. They may pass the tests, but that's because the tests have been revised and revised until they're things people can pass. But they don't know how to do it. Well, how do you start? Well, the conventional way is with something like pieces of, it used to be pieces of pie, and now it's pieces of pizza, and pretty soon it'll be pieces of something that's more organic. But but it's still the basic idea. You cut something up into so many pieces, and a fraction, you know, if you cut it in eighths, then a fraction is one of those 8 pieces. Now, there's a lot of research that shows that that's a really bad way to introduce rational numbers, because what it encourages kids to do is to transfer everything they learned in the preceding 4 or 5 years about counting numbers and to transfer it over to fractions. And they're in big trouble as soon as they do that. But that's how it's taught. That's how the textbooks present it. Whose fault is it? Well, it's certainly not the classroom teacher's fault, but it's the fault of this thing called best practice. in this case, best practice happens to be just really poor. And if you track along this is an interesting one because I think it's a solved problem. It's just that people don't know about the solution. But then there are others, like the teaching of foreign languages. A great mystery is why foreign language instruction in North America, or generally in the English-speaking world, fails so badly when it succeeds so well in some other countries. There's something missing in the state of the art there. It should be acknowledged, but I still remember how outraged a curriculum supervisor was who supervised French second language instruction. And I said, doesn't it get discouraging sometimes to have us be teaching a subject where everybody fails? Well, of course, they'd arrange things so that this horrible fact is never actually presented in the experience of the teachers. And she didn't at all appreciate my having pointed it out, though she didn't deny it.
Certainly. In the 1980s, you were selected as a member of the National Academy of Education, and in 2001, you were featured along with Wittgenstein, Heidegger, Piaget, Vygotsky, Foucault, Gardner, and others in the book, 50 Modern Thinkers on Education. It's quite the honor. What do you feel your biggest impact has been?
Impact? Well, you know, the evidence is all correlational, so you really can't, you can't attribute causation to with confidence. I could point to how kindergartens have changed, and they've changed in ways that are in many ways congruent with what we were doing in the preschool program back then. But not only is it not clear that our work had any causal influence, I'm not sure I want it to be accused of it because I'm not that happy about what's happened in kindergarten. I mean, essentially, it looks like all they're doing is moving first grade down to kindergarten, and that's no great intellectual achievement. But I think, you know, the terms or concepts that I introduced, not alone, but in one case with Engelman and in others with Marlene, direct instruction, knowledge building, intentional learning, that hasn't spread to the same extent. But here and there and everywhere you'll find some educators who say, yes, I do think intentional learning is a better concept than self-regulated learning. The fact that 99% of the population in education thinks they're the same doesn't mean there isn't a difference that some people find worth paying. So that's a kind of impact that is a little more identifiable. And changing the way people talk about things is, to a large extent, changing the way people think about things. And that's an impact that, as a researcher, I'd be happy if I could think that I had a part to play in some of that.
On that note, what are your big thinking or exciting next steps in the field?
Well, the stuff we're working on right now is one is a model of knowledge-creating dialogue moves. Think of moves the way you would think of moves in a chess game. Mm-hmm. They're not the whole dialogue, and making moves isn't the whole chess game either. I mean, there's how you interact with your opponents and how you take care of yourself so you stay alert and don't make mistakes. All of those things are part of the game. In dialogue, a whole lot goes on that's not advancing toward a goal, but there are moves people can make that do advance them. And we're working on a normative model, that is not one that explains knowledge creation, but one that lays out good moves. And I think this is, it's certainly going to help us in further design of technology. And whether it will have much impact outside of that work, I don't know. One of the more pessimistic things I say from time to time is that nothing is freer from danger of being stolen than a good educational idea. You can leave it sitting out there and you come back 3 years later and it's still going to be there. So it's safe. But this is one. I mean, more generally, I think the societies as a whole are moving steadily in the direction of putting more and more of a premium on ability to work creatively with knowledge and ideas. And this is not just having the ability to absorb knowledge and to generate ideas. It's to work with those things as objects and turn them into something. Because another of my favorite sayings is that ideas are a dime a dozen. There's a single isolated bright idea is very rarely worth anything. It only starts to acquire value if you use it as part of building a more complex structure. I think that's because society as a whole has to move this way, given the dynamics of it. It will eventually become how education is shaped. To a very large extent, and this is far from an original idea, education reflects what's going on in the culture. It doesn't produce cultural change very often. And as the society as a whole gets to feel comfortable with working with ideas, I mean, most people are not comfortable with it right now, but as people get more comfortable with it, eventually that will get to be what we do in school. And I would hope that by the time the schools get turned in that direction, we'll have some good technology to offer, we'll have some good pedagogy to offer that ties directly into that kind of objective.